welcome to Design Voices Elevated. Today we are with Fabiola.
Hello.
We're not at Fabiola's place because Fabiola has a ton of cats. I don't know a ton, but certainly one.
Yeah, one amazing cat.
And I'm allergic. So she came to my house. So we are in Rotterdam today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, of course. Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a bit about your story?
Yeah, my name is Fabiola. I'm a UX director at Media Monks, and previously I was UX director at Gem3, which is a production company, innovation company based in Toronto. Previously, I was a service designer in Fjord, Dublin, and then before that I was a product designer in London, but everything started when I was in Turin as a strategist working for a company called Todo, where we were doing primarily exhibition design. So I started there as the first UX designer and the strategist, and then I moved not just countries, but also different roles within UX, because I wanted to explore the entire spectrum of UX, from strategy into the more like service design, into the execution, and now I am in a leadership role, so to say.
What's design for you?
Oof, good question. It's a lot of things and nothing at the same time. I would say it's really hard to define. So that's why sometimes it feels like an empty word when you say that an object is, for example, design objects. Or for me, primarily in all these years that I've been practicing design, mainly it's collaboration and creation through collaboration, I would say. So it's a practice that you do in participations with others, and what the others can bring in is adding value to the design process and the design output as well, I would say. So yeah, primarily participation, I would say.
And how do you think your object of design has changed across all of these different experiences?
Well, every time that I was moving into a new role, I was acquiring like a new definition of design to put into my vocabulary, so to say. So when I started, I was in a small company. It was like a small team. I think we were around 10 people, and so design was more like a craft. So something that you're good at and something that you're bringing your individual value to it. Then naturally, when I moved into product, design was more like a service that you were providing to a specific set of people for a specific purpose, so to say. And everything design was more like refinement, like how can we constantly improve the experience for this product specifically. And then when I went into service design, it's almost like taking a step back, like, okay, now let's look at the bigger picture. Design is not just like craft, it's not just like a singular experience. Design is the participation of experiences and the ecosystem around one experience. And that was quite illuminating for me for a number of reasons. The first reason is that for the first time, I was more in contact with the definition of design that I discovered at the university, right? You go to the university, you study design, you do research, you study the methodologies, and then somehow what happened to me is that I moved into the workplace and somehow I lost that because I was really into like an environment in which craft was valued. And so you were supposed to work a lot by yourself, and you didn't have like the resources in terms of time or in terms of budget to go and explore, do the things that you learned at the university. And then when I went into service design, it was all about methodologies and all about applying what I learned at the university into the workplace, which was amazing for me. I like it a lot. And so, yeah.
You've seen a few places, changing jobs in a few contexts. How do you think, what's your view on the market for design right now? What's happening?
I don't know, maybe this answer could take the rest of the conversation. Like, I don't know how much time we have, actually. I have a lot of opinions about it.
Share your opinions.
Do you mean more like in terms of the value of design, or in terms of the market, in terms like how the rules are changing and how the job market is
I mean
changing?
both. I mean, design today is seen and used in organizations, I feel, in a very different way than maybe 10 years ago. And we've gone through peaks, and I feel right now we are in a dip.
Yes.
So I would like to have your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that for years we talk, like in our circles, we talk about the design bubble, so to say, like, is this something that is going to burst? And it seems like, I don't want to say it's happening, but the feeling is that something is happening, or the definition of design is changing. And we see this in the industry, the fact that a lot of companies that used to be pure design thinking are now shifting their business, and they're focusing or refocusing on something else. And it's also, we just don't have to think about design as a standalone component, but if we look at the macro economy around, there is a crisis right now, and companies, they tend to, save money, but also go back to where they feel more secure about it, which is, again, I think it's more like the craft, not that much that idea of experimentation or innovation, exploration. So what I see in the market right now is that company looking for more individual contributors, looking more for like that type of refinement that can, can help the product growth. And they're kind of like pushing back on this idea of design as collaboration, because maybe it's too much high level, it's too much intangible, so to say, it's too much theoretical and not that practical. And right now, what companies are looking at, it's mostly like, how can we survive? How can we have more like revenues and things like that?
But wasn't always like that. Like, wasn't always the organization's first, objective is getting more money. I mean, it's always been like that, right? Since I started working 20 years ago, that was the number one thing that people used to tell you. So, I mean, what really changed?
Again, it's hard to grasp, I have to say, especially if you are in the situation, right? Like if you're living it. I think amongst designers, we're trying to analyze it, but maybe we're, missing the points. Again, it's true that they always been like the business as a primary value in the market, but I felt there was a momentum in which user-centered design specifically was quite important. Now, again, there is maybe more technological drive with the rising of AI or the rising of Web3. The focus is on how can we maybe move our money into something that is more technological, like innovative in that sense, and less into the practice of design. Again, I think it's another reason could be that companies are also kind of like internalizing the processes. So before, design was something that was made by a bunch of people that were specialized in that, and companies were basically, going around looking for like teams to include in their own business activities. And now some of the company, or most of the companies, they have their own design theme.
No.
But I also believe that having your own design team embedded in your companies, it maybe is changing the design practice a bit compared to, the pure, let's say, consultancy type of process.
I know that you have you've thought quite a bit about the role of AI in ethics, and you are also writing a book on the topic with someone else.
Yeah.
Would you want to share some of your reflections on that?
Again, it's something that is related to like how the scenario changed in the last few years, especially with the pandemic. I think I remember during the pandemic there was a boom in terms of Web3 NFTs, and that lasts, I think, maybe 1.5 years, if I'm not wrong, and that was a bubble, so to say. in the sense that now the hype, we don't have like the same hype that we had during the pandemic. And then right after that, we had another boom, which was AI, and this happened because of ChatGPT, basically, which was like the moment in which, in my opinion, we created like a user interface for the AI. Wasn't like the first time, but was like the first time that AI was approachable
to consumer.
Yeah, to consumer in a sense. There was like this idea that AI wasn't just algorithm, but it was like a human-like type of interactions. And again, what is my opinion about it? I'm still trying to figure out. I'm changing my opinions all the time. What I feel is that, again, right now, it's a practice that is very like technology driven. Sometimes even just for the sake of technology, in the sense that, AI is evolving so fast. Like every month you have something new coming up. It's a new service, a new way of treating, the data, new algorithms, new outputs. And it's always like better than before. But the question is like, throughout which lens? Like, is it better for the users? Is it always better for the user? Or this advancement is specifically a technological advancement? And so every time that I see something new coming up, I ask myself, okay, why, first of all, and how this is serving the user. So, and I think there are a lot of people are thinking about that. There are a lot of people that are trying to understand and try to really, not really stop the thinking, but pause it to ask ourselves why we're doing this, why we have such advancement in AI, what is the purpose, who is serving, and so I'm still kind of like thinking about what is the purpose of AI, like, and what is the role of the users in all of this.
How do you use it in your work?
We use it in a couple of ways, and I think in the future AI is gonna be used in these two ways. One is the production of your work. And again, I think AI, we're calling it artificial intelligence, but I think that primarily AI is automation and simplification. Automation and simplification can really help some of the work streams. So for example, as we know, it's gonna help us to produce faster or to assist us in certain tasks. Like you need to write something, you give a prompt, you get something back, or you need to edit a presentation or an image, whatever. AI can help with that, which is true. So there is the AI is going to cover the entire, let's say, process of automation of tasks, and it's gonna make things more faster. But we also need to be aware that in doing so, there's gonna be a simplification of the tasks. So, for example, even in design, you can have like AI analyzing a set of interviews and creating insights for you, but what is taking away from your contribution, like your thinking, your analysis on the interviews as well? Yes, it's automating, it's making faster the process of getting insights, but what you're losing in the process. So this is one thing. The other thing is that AI is gonna power user experiences, which means that more and more we're gonna have experiences for the final users where AI is gonna be a component in it. And this is, from UX perspective, is quite interesting because what we're missing right now, and what I think is one of our priorities in designing with AI, is to understand how UI, or the user experience, the UX is gonna evolve when the AI is gonna participate in the user experience. So just to give you an example, if something is gonna be a collaboration between a human, a person, and AI, I don't know, you need to fill up a form or you need to produce something like that. How do we communicate that the role of AI to the users? And how much do we need to explain? What is like the level of trust that we need to establish between the users and AI? But also, like, again, more like an existential type of question, like, do we want the AI to be human-like? Or do we want to keep AI as it is, like an algorithm that is working for the users? And again, I think what's interesting is that the designers from now on, the UX designers, they are going to work on the perception of AI for the humans.
What does that mean, working on the perception of AI?
It's complex topic because it's almost like philosophical, like, you know, it's like what it means to be human, what it means to be a machine.
Yeah.
And why we're calling it artificial intelligence, why we're calling it intelligence as well. So, and why we want to use human voice to replicate AI. You know, if we think about Siri, or if we're thinking about Alexa, and it's and again, I think there are almost like two themes in these conversations. One is, okay, let's make the artificial intelligence human-like, so that it's gonna be easier for the users, for the humans to interact with it. And there is another team, and I'm thinking maybe I'm closer to these other team that says, but what is the risk in this?
What's the risk?
I think there is a risk in the sense that, first of all, again, it's a machine, it's not a human.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of the biases that we have, and we need to be aware that our behavior is changing, knowing that it is a machine or knowing that it's more like a human-like. And we notice this also from, you know, a number of experiments. There is a big discussion about using female voices for AI. Why female voices for AI? Why not male voices? And for example, the reactions of the AI. So, for example, if you insult an AI, what's going to be the reaction of the AI? And I think this is quite interesting because, again, it's related to the perception. If the AI is not going to respond to an insult, what the people are going to think about AI? And if the AI is human-like, how these human-like type of interactions is changing your human interactions, right? And that's why, you know, there is a faction that thinks that AI should be treated as a machine, because we need to keep somehow the distance between your human-like interactions and the machine interactions. So the designer, the UX designer, also has to take into account all of this, like what type of character, like what type of personality we want to give to the AI the moment that we build it. What are the interactions that we want to allow, and what are the interactions that we don't want to allow? What is the level of moderation that we put into place? What is, again, the level of autonomy that we want to give? And the perception is crucial depending also on the sectors that you look at it. For example, perception in aviation is different from perception or in I don't know, the house settings, you know? So would you like to give a level of automation, or would you like to have a trustworthy relationship in aviation, or in the house setting? Is going to be completely different, I think. Yeah. So the role of the designer is that, because I think that if we go after, you know, the technological innovation, the fact that whatever we put out there is going to be better than what was there before, we're going to lose these type of considerations. So we give for granted that it's always better, but doing so, we don't stop and check if it is so. So
I know that you are in the feminist discourse, and you do a lot of reading. And what's the feminist lens to all of this?
Again, I don't know if we can define it as a feminist lens. I think there is a level, I think we should bring a level of intersectionality into design discourse, that sense, right? Because we tend to talk about design, and we always talk as design as a practice, but design is happening in conjunction with other things. And the technological advancement or the technological innovations are also part of these intersectionality, has like, you know, biases towards genders, or, you know, any type of biases really is also part of the discourse. So again, I don't know if we can talk about the feminist lens, but I think that there are a number of minorities, so to say, or a number of categories, so to say, that are not entering the pictures for a number of reasons. We can start from the fact, for example, that technology and somehow design is a male-driven type of practice, so to say. The majority of the companies, the majority of the CEOs are, male, and this is somehow also impacting on the practice itself, because there are a number of things that are not getting into the pictures because there is no participations of different categories or minorities. When we talk about AI, again, I don't think we can maybe talk about the feminist point of view, but for example, there was a discussion around, as I said, female voices, why AI should be a female, and what it means to do not react to certain things. But also, because AI is based on data, what is the quality of the data and how women are represented into the data. So in the scientific field, there are a number of examples out there that are testifying that, for example, the crash tests were made with dummies that were, following like the male figure and not the female figure. So there is we know that most of the time or sometimes there is a failure in the data. And this bias in the data is coming from either the collection or the way that data are sorted or the way that data are served. And generative AI is another example. If you want to generate an image and you just, for example, prompt beautiful girl, what is the image that you're gonna get from there? It's a stereotypical type of image. And why this is happening? Because the data that we collected about beautiful girl are matching a specific stereotype of a beautiful girl. So in that case, you don't have representation, you don't have diversity, and you're literally like representing just one portion of the world. What is the problem in this? The problem in this is that we are expecting that sooner, like in some years, AI is gonna start to, for example, train on images that were generated by AI. So if AI is gonna, learn from the images that are generated by AI, what is the quality of these images that we're generating with AI, and how, they are contributing in making the world a more like a diverse and inclusive world. So again, it's not a feminist because it's a lot of things all together, but there is definitely, I think, a point of view that can contribute to the discourse, that can enrich the discourse. And it's never about really stopping the innovation, right? It's always like making it more fair and make it more inclusive for the people that sooner or later are going to be affected by AI.
If people want to read about it, do you have any recommendations and stuff to read?
Yes. There are a lot of books out there. I usually always recommend Ivana Bartoletti as a starting point because she wrote a book, I think it's called An Artificial Revolution. It's a tiny book, but it's very comprehensive of what it means, to create an AI, to create an AI that is fair, and to create an AI that can basically, get the right data, work with the right data, and what is the impact that is going to have on the world. Not just when we think about the final product of AI, but also the entire production of AI. So, for example, the fact that there are people around the world that are spending 8 hours a day training AI, looking at images, violent images, or again, giving feedbacks to AI to what is good and what is bad. And this is also taking a toll on some people. So Ivana Bartoletti, one of them. Then there is a very good book that is called How to Talk with Robots. And it's more like a book in which you have like an overview of AI, and then you have a bunch of interviews about women that are working with AI. And then Kate Crawford, Atlas of AI. And so those are my 3 to-go books.
I'm gonna add the links in the comments for you folks. Okay, thank you for that. I want to change subject and talk about your volunteering
Oh, yes.
passions.
Yeah.
Because you have a full-time job as a
Yes, I
director of
do.
Media Monks, but you also do a whole bunch of other things.
Yes, I think actually it's volunteering, but I feel when I say volunteering, people think about me doing extremely good stuff, like I don't know, go somewhere and save people and things. No, it's really kind of like chill out type of volunteering, and it's really something that kind of helped me a lot, being also a better designer, to be honest, or at least don't think about myself solely as a designer, right? But think more about, I'm a person that is also a designer, but in my spare time, this is also what I like to do. So it's a couple of things that I do. One is I participate in a storytelling activities. I'm not a storytelling myself, but I'm helping the group that is organizing the storytelling. Just simple task. I serve at the bar, and I like it a lot. And it's like a full circle because I used to be a bartender when I was studying. Until I started to work, I used to be a bartender.
Actually.
And I always thought, it's a good plan B. Like whatever is gonna happen, you can serve people at the bar. It's a way out somehow. But at the same time, I was aging doing it because I couldn't wait to have a proper job.
Yeah.
Then you get into the proper job, and now after 10 years into having a proper job in an office, I'm like, what, it's not that bad. It's kind of like an instant gratification because you just like behind the counter, people are asking for a beer, you give a beer, they're happy, you are happy, there are no deadlines. So, and I like that. It's
immediate satisfaction.
It's immediate satisfaction, and it seems like the purpose for you is to make people happy in that case. And you have nice conversation. Nobody cares that you are a designer. Again, it's quite. How can I say? It's a sense of freedom, so to say, to be in a conversation and to talk whatever you want. Talk with people who are not necessarily designers. You realize that design is maybe not that central topic in your life, and this is one thing that I do. So I work until 6:30, and then at 6:45 I'm serving beers, which is super good. I recommend it. And then I also part of a collective. Recently joined this year another collective, and there it's more like focus on books. I'm not gonna say more than that. But yes, it's a super nice. And again, I don't think anybody knows I'm a designer because our topic of discussion is more like it's a non-profit, so we can make some good stuff.
I mean, you repeated a few times, no one knows that I'm a designer. Why is that important? Like to escape from your daily be a designer role into a place where nobody knows that you're a designer?
I mean, again, it's more like an intersectionality of it. It's not just being a designer, but also being an expert.
Right.
And I'm heading this level because somehow, because we moved somewhere else to be better designers, don't we? I don't know if it was
for sure.
So
I don't consider myself an expert, but an immigrant.
Yeah, I basically escaped Italy because I wasn't happy as a designer. I wanted to improve my practice, and this is why I moved. But the moment that you move somewhere else as a designer, in my case, I found myself working with designers. My friends were designers. They were mostly experts as well. And I lived in 3 different countries working, and it was always the same. So when I arrived to the Netherlands and I saw these patterns again, I was like, I don't think I want to stay in this bubble anymore. I want to have connections outside of the work. So when I say nobody cares that I'm a designer, it's because I spent years in conversation with friends talking about design.
Yeah, married one. Go figure. Yes.
See?
I know. I see what you mean.
Well, most of the time I just want to talk about books and movies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's quite refreshing. For me, at least, it was.
I know that you're thinking at one point in your life to shift career and do something else completely.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Again, it's an existential crisis. I think it's happening for millennials. I don't know how many millennials out there thinking the same, but
Yeah.
it seems like for millennials, the midlife crisis is, coming now. And it's also true that, I think the pandemic also shifts our priorities a bit.
That's true.
Again, it's something that I'm elaborating, but as some other designers I talk with, there is a frustration, which is the fact that everything that you do is somehow intangible, or it doesn't, it's not something that you can touch, or the fact that, for example, you spend a lot of time in front of your computer. So the crisis is maybe not about the design itself. I mean, it's also a bit about, what is the purpose of design. After 10 years, I think it's natural that you ask yourself, okay, how my perception of design changed, and because also you are a different person from what you started, right? And the frustration is like more related to, yes, the quality of the output. What are you heading to the world, basically? How are you making the world a better place as a designer? Which is a real struggle.
Yeah, designers are obsessed with it, isn't it? Like, with any virtually designer that I've spoken with in the last 20 years, it's all making the world a better place. It's just a real thing, like for people.
I think this is also coming from...
Which is not for engineers. I don't feel it's the same for engineers.
Yeah, but this is why maybe we have the clash also, For example, talking about AI. Oh, yes, it's just like a better advancement of technology. Yes, but what are we heading to the world, Yeah. It's... I don't know if you know the joke about how many UX designers you need to change a light bulb.
No.
Doesn't have to be a light bulb. But, so what I was about to say, I think it's something that is also coming from what they told you when you were starting this career, for example, the university. For UX design, it was always, how can we improve the user experience, right? So how can you help users do this and that? So you really, I mean, there was like this red thread in which you wanted to help somebody. Naturally, when you are in a role as a UX designer, you're gonna see these changing quite rapidly, because it's not just about the UX designer. Yes, this is your primary goal, but also you have to think about, the business needs, the business objectives, the technological implications, so on and so forth. So it's never just about that. But I think maybe the reason why you wanted to start this practice in the first place was because you wanted to do something good, but there was also something innovative, something creative. And so I think that after, many years, you still have that idea, what I'm adding to the world. And somehow, for some people, most of the people, I don't know, it's still unresolved.
I just realized I do have the book, and actually bought it in the... Is it library now? It's a bookstore. A bookstore where Fabiola volunteers.
Yes. Ivana Bartoletti, a really good book. I recommend it.
I will let you know. Okay, so my next question is about leadership and managing. This is something that I'm really passionate about. It's a question that I often ask. What is the difference between leading and managing, and in what way designers are going about it?
One of the textbook definition that I like about the difference between managing and leadership is that managing is reacting and leadership is showing. Which means...
I'm not sure I agree, actually.
I found it quite interesting, because in my work, like day-to-day work, there is a percentage of reaction and there is a percentage of showing, right? So, and the most bureaucratic things are reacting, somehow. Those are reactions. While maybe the career growth is more like showing. This is what I was thinking about. But I also have a lot of opinions on how you get there, in the sense that right now you usually become a manager or a leader, or you step into a leadership role because of basically because of seniority. You become a senior or you become a lead, and then what's next? And usually what's next is you become a director, or you become a manager, or you become like a people person, whatever we want to call it in an organization. And every organization has their own taxonomies about leadership or roles. But what I really noticed, and it's not just about me, but in general, is that from one day to another, you enter a new role without that much of preparation and without even that much of research, if you want to do it or not, in that sense. Like, it is a promotion on the paper, but it comes with a new set of responsibility and skills that either you have it or you have to develop. Some people get into a manager role and they don't want to deal with people, really. I get it because but I get it because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of emotional work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
So when you're a designer, you're dealing with a project, which somehow is rational, it's logic. You can get opinions, you can get rejections about what you're proposing, but what is on the table is still a project. Doesn't have, a heart, a mind, a family. Doesn't have all the things that a person has. So when you're a manager, instead, your focus shift from the project to the people, and this is where you start to, where you start to be more involved with other people in a setting that is, again, it's your work environment. So you ask yourself, what is the balance between the emotional level and the practical level that you want to apply? What is work and what is friendship, and how you're going to manage those two things. And again, I understand why some people don't want, because when you go back at home, you're trained, because it comes with a lot of responsibility, and not always these responsibilities are something that you can manage yourself or that you decide yourself. Some of the decisions, most of the decisions, are organizational decisions. And but you are the one that is mediating, right, between parts. So I think this is really taking a toll, and not all the people are good at it or they want to do it, and I totally
Most
understand.
people actually are not good at it.
Yeah, but then the question is, what is the alternative? Like, I also think that the organizations are not providing an alternative path for those people that are really good at something, at their own craft, because they spent the last 7 years, 8 years, 9 years doing it, and then from one day to another, they're asked to move from that to something else. So I think, again, it's complicated, because
No, I agree. I mean, on one side, there is this issue where there is not really an alternative path. If you want to get promoted and get more money and more responsibility, you will have at one point to get in the on the train of managing other people. But on the other side, what I'm thinking is that there are a lot of, I mean, at least in my experience, I coach quite a number of people that are at that transition, right? And a lot of people that I feel and I know could be potentially incredibly good managers are scared and don't want to do it because the only example that they have is just toxic, So the only thing they've seen in their experience is just micromanagers and, toxic environments. And so then it's an issue, right? Because you potentially have people that could really perform well in their role, but they're not supported in any possible way. They're not surrounded by any good examples. And so they end up either just making themselves small and staying in that practitioner role just to avoid any exposure to that.
Trauma.
Yeah, totally.
No, I think it makes sense, and I understand it. It's strange because when I think about the way I want to be as a leader or manager, we can go into the definition of that a bit further in a bit. I never think about my managers on paper, but always like people that I met. They were like trying to establish a relationship with me, and I like the way they were helping me. So, for example, while I was in Dublin, I met an amazing designer. I'm not gonna say his name. I want to say his name, but I'm not gonna do it. But every time that I had a problem, I was reaching out to him. He wasn't my manager, but I was reaching out to me. I was reaching out to him, and every time the first thing that he was saying was like, "How can I help?" And that really stuck with me. And I thought, okay, next time that somebody is gonna ask me something, I'm gonna say that. And I think those little things, the things that you can borrow from people, are and the things that are making you feel good, supported, and that somebody is listening, are the things that you can then recreate as a manager. So don't look at the manager role, but look at the people that are, they're giving you like good vibes in that sense, right? Because it's really like the feeling of support that you are supposed to transmit as a manager. And regarding the micromanaging and the toxic type of manager, I also think that this is somehow related to a narrative into their organizations, or the technology industry or the design industry, which is efficiency, and performance, again, for the sake of performance. So I noticed that micromanaging is when you really want things in a certain way, and these might be more closer to certain process. I don't think should be the way to behave within the design industry. I was thinking about this lately, like every time that I think about a leader. So let me ask you this question. If I tell you like the world, like if I ask you, what do you think when you think about a leader, like a picture in your mind? What do you think?
It's usually a person that enables.
But where is she or he or they? Like, if it's an image, how it's gonna look like?
It's a woman and in her 50s, and it is an organizational environment, so a corporate somewhat environment.
Because when I think about that, it's not that different. And for me, it's younger, but it's always, as you said, a woman, and so there is some sort of loneliness around her.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
And that's why leader scares me a bit. Because, and that's why also sometimes I ask myself, is this what I want to do? Because it comes with a bit of loneliness around you, or at least until you reach out, you feel like, oh my God, I'm here. What I'm gonna do? Again, you move from a craft type of role into a managing role, and you're alone.
I don't know. I think, to be honest, I usually tend to separate this concept of a leader as a role from a leader as an attitude, right?
Yes.
There are people who just lead, period, from whatever standpoint they are in. Like they're a junior and you see them entering the room and approaching people in a way that is leading, providing a vision, steering the conversation, giving direction, right? And then the other thing is when you have leader as a word in your job title, right? That's a completely different set, and I'm way more interested in the first one than in the second, to be honest.
Yes. It's interesting because I wonder how the two things they go together, and I'm also curious about your opinion. Again, talking about intersectionality, the attitude of leading is often associated with being an extrovert.
Well, not necessarily. Actually, most of the good leaders that I've seen are introverts. They are at ease with in a context with other people, but there are those people that eventually, maybe this is where the individualism also comes, that then need to retract, like they need to go back, and they themselves are a source of energy. They really need to go back in order to be able to do all of the other things.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah.
I mean, I think there is a very stereotypical idea of a leader. There is an extrovert, talking to everyone, always in the crowd, Sure, but I don't see that. I mean, I've experienced a lot more variety, if you like.
Okay, that's good. I think, again, also my perception of leaders coming with a bunch of biases and bunch of stereotypes. So in my case, part of my fears, it's about, again, individualism, because what it means to be a leader, especially as you said, leader as an attitude doesn't really comes with any fears. It's good to see people thrive, and especially women. But I wonder again how, I often wonder, what if we swap leaders with communities instead?
That's interesting. Yeah.
And again, because the way I picture leaders is alone on a stage or leading a group of faceless people. While community for me, it's more like there's still opportunities to lead in a community, but also in communities you have people that are somehow interchangeable. So there is not just one person.
Social movements, right?
Yes. And I like that also because, I don't know if you ever discussed this with other people, but leaders in organizations, they can also leave that organization and go somewhere else, right? So if you have just one person, what is going to happen?
Yeah, it's not resilient enough, for sure.
And also leaders might ask themselves, what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave my team. What is going to happen if I leave? So on and so forth. Again, unemotional. And then the team can also be affected by a leader, like a single person leaving. Say, okay, what we're going to do without that person leading anymore? I was thinking, and again, it's something that I'm still trying to figure out myself. What happens if we shift a bit from leaders to communities, and in our community, if somebody is, going away, you still have the rest of them,
resilient group. Actually, I have a very good friend, Antonio Sternino, who's based in Montreal, and he's doing a PhD on what design leadership can learn from social movements. And he wrote an article on Design Mavericks in June as our guest column. And is actually very much going towards that direction.
Yeah, and I think it's going to benefit also change in an organization, right? Sure. Because if you have one person, then also, some people are refractarian to change.
Yeah.
And it's easier to, fight or, contrast one person compared to a movement or a community. So I think that also change is going to benefit from communities instead of leadership, so to say. So again, individualism is one of my fear. I wonder what happens if we go more into an individualistic type of society.
Which we are anyway. Right?
Yes, we are. But also, because design, it's part of the society, then how this is going to be reflected in design practice. Because again, we started this conversation with my definition of design that was collaboration.
Right.
So it creates a little bit of contrast right now with, then individualism with collaboration, how it's gonna be. The second fear is, I would say, again, going blind, refuse to look at all the things that are happening around us only for the sake of innovation. And again, let's say it again, intersectionality, in the sense that there is an advancement in technology, that's for sure, but it's also a real threat in sustainability. So how, we talk about the fact that we have huge issues in terms of sustainability, but we never take technology advancement into account for that. So it's always about gas emission. It's always about our personal consumption. It's never. But then we are releasing a new technology, and nobody's asking, okay, but how this is gonna impact.
Or if people say, then everybody's like, shh.
Yeah. So again, I'm afraid that we're, it seems like we're now looking at things staying on like an individual track, while in reality, the world, the people, and the things that are happening are very connected with each other. And I think it's the role of design, because, as a designer, especially as a service designer, you have to look at the bigger picture. And we need more people there, they want to stand out and say, okay, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's see how this intersectionality, let's see how these things are connected with each other. And let's see the impact of, just not one thing within that reel, but how it's going to affect people, how it's going to affect the planet, how it's going to affect our, values and what we put into our daily life. So, this is one of my fear, like the fact that we're going quite blinded into the future, and we are, looking just one thing instead of the bigger picture, like losing the contact with the bigger picture. So, as designers, I invite all the designers to stand up and think about the bigger picture the moment that they design something.
Could we say that that's your hope?
Oh, this is a tough one. I was quite prepared for the fears, but
I cannot possibly end with fears.
No, this connection. I hope that we are going to learn how to disconnect more from technology and the internet. Why I'm saying that, again, maybe it's a millennial type of thing, because we were there at the beginning, and now we're like full time into no, I think there is I think we lost a little bit the balance between online and offline, and I think this is somehow affecting our perception of relationships, our perception of interactions. And the scary part, it's that it's almost like experimental on us. Like we've been like the first generation that is experimenting what it means to be constantly online, or constantly under the judgment of others, so to say, throughout social media or whatever you put out there, included in this interview. So my hope for the future is that we reach a point of saturation in which then the people says, okay, enough, let's balance this. And I hope that this is not gonna be just like an individual push, again, but almost like a movement.
But a societal shift.
Yeah, more like a societal shift that is gonna be included in the technology at some point. For example, purely futuristic type of utopia. What if we start to design products that can be used only for a certain amount of time, and then they expire? They expire, or they force you to go offline. Which is totally in contrast with the business, if you think about how the business
is the goal, right?
Exactly. But that's my hope. Like I hope that people are gonna be more participant in the way we experience technology.
Fabiola, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thank you for watching this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please share it with your network. Design Voices Elevated is a short video series aiming to provide a stage to underrepresented design leaders to inspire new reflections and conversations. My name is Marcia Arico. I'm a strategic design consultant, design leadership coach, public speaker, and author. If you would like to follow my work, please subscribe to designmavericks.substack.com. See you next time.